I went for a walk in the small grove near the vineyards behind my house, a place I know well, where I always come to clear my mind and recharge with positive energy. But suddenly, everything was different. I felt it before I saw it. The air was warmer, carrying the scent of earth and ripe grain. I wasn't afraid, but the world around me had changed. I stepped out of the grove, and instead of the familiar vineyards, endless wheat fields stretched before me, glowing under the sun. Golden stalks swayed gently in the wind, and a narrow dirt path wound through them, leading to a small house on a gentle hill. It was simple, made of earth, with a low roof and a courtyard enclosed by a reed fence. I am in China. The year is 1840, somewhere in the countryside near Beijing. In 1840, China was ruled by the Qing dynasty, but the empire was no longer as strong as it once had been. Farmers in the north lived in simple earthen houses, growing wheat, millet, and vegetables. Their lives were harsh. High taxes, corruption, and constant fear of droughts or floods kept them in poverty. Taxes were not only paid to the emperor, but also to local officials and wealthy landowners who often abused their power. Opium, smuggled into the country by the British, destroyed the lives of thousands, but it did not spread among farmers as much as it did in the cities. During this time, dissatisfaction was growing. Many villagers joined secret societies and rebelled against the authorities. Uprisings spread because people had nothing left to lose. It was an era when imperial power began to tremble. I entered the house. I didn't knock at all. I just walked in, like coming home. The room was small, modestly furnished, with only the soft warmth of the kang providing a gentle glow. Peasant homes in northern China often had a kang, a large earthen platform used for sitting, sleeping, and heating. Smoke from the stove and hearth beneath it flowed through hidden chambers, warming it from within. It wasn't just a place to rest, but the very heart of the home. In the corner stood a simple stove made of raw brick, where meals were prepared. No wood burned in it. That was too precious. The fire was fed with dried manure, straw, or reeds, whatever the countryside had to offer. The smoke escaped through a small opening, yet the room still carried a faint scent of burnt stalks, the fragrance of everyday rural life. The family sat at a low wooden table, square in shape. In the countryside, where space was limited, such tables were more common, not round ones. The mother, father, a son around 15 years old, and a daughter about 12. No one said a word, yet the silence wasn't tense. Rather, it was that peculiar moment when something disturbs the rhythm of daily life, and you feel that it belongs there, even though you don't know why. There was food on the table, simple but warm. A bowl of thick dough porridge made from wheat flour and millet. Next to it, thin, fragrant Bing pancakes, lightly roasted on a hot plate. Pickled cabbage, seasoned with garlic, released its aroma from a plate. Steam still rose from a wooden bowl. Soup, just water with pieces of tofu and radish, but warming and filling. In the center of the table lay a small piece of pork fat, a rare treat meant only for flavoring. It was not a rich table, but it was a table where life was lived. No one hurried to start eating again. They just looked at me for a brief moment, as if they knew me. Although China was formally a patriarchal society, especially according to Confucian principles, men had the final say in the family. Women took care of the household, and children were raised to be obedient. But what was written on paper and what was actually lived within families were not always the same. In this home, there was no cold distance, but mutual respect. A man who perhaps fought against injustice outside was at home a protector, not a master. He did not demand respect. He earned it with love, with actions, with strength that he did not use to issue commands, but to care for those closest to him. A woman was not just a silent shadow of her husband. She was the heart of the family, the connection between everyone. She created a home, not out of fear, but out of love. And the children? They did not learn through blind obedience, but by observing this balance. They knew their parents were not just authority and duty, they were the force that held the family together. Love here was not gentle and fragile, it was strong, anchored in ordinary moments, in a quiet glance at the table, in the hand that passed a pancake, in a harmony that needed no words. This was not a family where one ruled and the others obeyed. This was a family where everyone was part of a whole, where each had their place but no one was more than the other. And maybe that's why, as I stood there in the doorway, I felt that I belonged to them. Suddenly, the barking of dogs, the wailing of poultry in the yard, the pounding of hooves, and a man's roar shattered the silence. Sounds that cut through the peace of the home like a sharp blade. They were here. Their faces showed no anger, only cold relentlessness. They did not need weapons. Their words cut just as sharply. Hands pulled us outside, rough, carrying orders, not compassion. The yard, which had been a place of safety just moments ago, was now just a piece of land that no longer belonged to us. In those times, there could have been many reasons why they came. Maybe it was debt. Taxes were ruthless. If you didn't pay, they took your property. If there was nothing to take, they took you. Maybe he had been labeled a rebel. A man who refused to bow was inconvenient. The government punished those who resisted. Maybe he was just a name on someone more powerful's list. Sometimes an accusation was enough. All it took was being in someone's way. Maybe he was just a warning to others, to make sure no one else tried the same. No one resisted. No one asked them why. I only saw his gaze, not frightened, but steady. The man who had just sat at our table. The man whose hands had held our home together. My man. He knew. He already knew. I never saw my husband and daughter again. Years passed, and the house that had once been taken from us returned to where it belonged. My son bought it back. When I looked at him, I saw not just the child I had once protected, but a man, strong, sensitive, mature. The hardships of life had not taken his goodness away. They had only taught him to be firmer. And in his gaze, in his hands, in his quiet smile, his father was there. He held my hand. The warmth of his palms anchored me in the present. Yet his gaze was already merging with something greater. Light, brightness, peace. And then there was only light. I rushed out of work. I have a short lunch break, something quick, nothing special. Just an ordinary day, just the familiar rhythm of responsibilities. But while my hands reach for food, my mind and heart run elsewhere, to something beautiful. I have never felt such an intense sense of love before. Never. And then he smiles at me. That smile I know.